By creating this dichotomy between the critical voice and the healthy voice, you can encourage your client or yourself to confront his or her critic. So here we will have a dialogue that will exemplify this exact process that you can use yourself. So we're going to go slow, and you can be the therapist and the client at the same time. Okay? So, the therapist. What did the critic say when you waited and didn't hear from your new friend? Client. That I'm not interesting, that I'm bored, that I bored him and he was tired of me. Therapist. What does the healthy coach say back to that? That our conversation was lively and fun, that there was nice energy between us. I could feel it. What else? Does the coach think you should stew about it? Or is there some action you can take? I could call him and try to get a sense of how he feels. Here you can see the example that you do not let the critic go about rambling and telling you what you have to feel, how you feel, and berate you. Okay? So you take back the power and say things exactly or as real as possible. Here you have seen that the client, or in that case yourself, have had a good energy, a feeling that something was good. So why not go with that feeling? Why berate yourself? Why put yourself down? And let's continue with another example. Client, I didn't get an assignment at work in on time. What did the bully say about that? That I'm lazy over and over. The bully said, you're lazy, you screw up, you will never get anywhere. Can you mobilize the healthy voice to say anything back? And the client says, all I hear is the bully. Right, now see if you can find your healthy voice so you can talk back to the bully. Are you really lazy and a screw up? Well, my healthy voice says, you did drag your feet, but still you finished it. You turned it in. No one really cared that it was late but you. Oh, so the bully exaggerated about screwing up. Yes, he always exaggerates. Here you see this conversation, and it is always an inner conversation, an inner dialogue, something that happens inside yourself, and you learn to talk back to that voice. You learn to instead of you saying that you always screw up, that you are lazy, that you're a failure, etc., you start to talk back to that voice. You say, yes, sometimes I'm lazy, sometimes I'm not. Usually, the things that matter to me, I'm not lazy at that, etc., etc., etc. Okay? So, the next step is cognitive restructuring. Okay? And in cognitive restructuring, the main goal is to identify the main function of a client's critic. In every case, the critical voice is being reinforced because it serves some positive function. Yes, there is always something positive that is gained from all our actions. Even an alcoholic gets the high, which is in her mind a good thing. So, to promote desired behavior, paradoxically, to protest self-worth or control painful feelings. And if we go again, in every case, the critical voice is being reinforced because it serves some positive function. For example, to promote desired behavior, and it is paradoxical, to protect self-worth or to control painful feelings. Client must understand the reason why he or she uses the critical voice and how it helps to protect him. Here is an example of how this issue can be discussed. The therapist. When you were feeling nervous during dinner, what was the critic saying? Client, she won't like you. You don't know anything and haven't much money, and you are not very funny. Therapist, remember, we said that the critic always tries to meet some need. What was he trying to protect you from this time? The client, from the kiss off. Therapist, he was trying to protect you from the fear of rejection. Right. How? By expecting it and then not getting so hurt. So the critic was sort of desensitizing you, preparing you. You wouldn't feel quite so bad if she didn't like you because you expect her not to. That's something we have seen a lot before. It's one of the main functions of your critic, protecting you from the fear of rejection. So you see, you can have the critic acting as a protector, telling you where you have failed so you won't either try in the future, or to protect you from expecting much in the future, so of not being hurt, etc. But sometimes it's just a critical thinker and trying to criticize you and trying to berate yourself, etc., etc., etc. So learning the critic's functions sometimes require an exhaustive inquiry. You have to explain that every thought, no matter how painful, exists because it is rewarded in some way. Critical self-attacks must therefore serve an important function. Yes, it always functions as something positive, at least perceived positive, in the back. Ask the client, what would you be forced to feel, or how be aware of it if the critic weren't attacking you in this situation? So what would you be forced to feel or be aware of if the critic weren't attacking you in this situation? How does the critic help you in this situation? What are you afraid of? What are you afraid you might do or fail to do without the critic in this situation? Some of the main functions of the critic are listed in chapter 3, Disarming the Critic. Using the chapter as a resource, you may want to suggest the major functions you see the critic serving you for your client. Once the function of the critical voice has been unmasked, this information can be used again and again during confrontations. Quote, once again you are using the critic to push you toward impossible levels of achievement. Again, you deal with the fear of failure by letting the critic tell you that you can't do it, so why try? You are letting the critic punish you again, so you won't have to feel so much guilt. Okay, so it's always a secondary why, or a secondary reason that something is happening. Identifying what reinforces the critic is half the battle. In addition, the client must learn that the important needs, or in that case we as the client, or the learning part, needs and his critic helps him meet can be satisfied in a healthier way. The critic is not the only way to deal with the fear of failure, fear of rejection, guilt, and so on. New, non-toxic strategies must be devised. Therapist, is there another way of lowering your anxiety about rejection? A way that doesn't use the critic? Client, I guess so. I could remind myself that we are both probably nervous, and that we are just there to have a pleasant evening, and it doesn't have to be anything beyond that. Therapist, in other words, tell yourself that it's just a date, and you don't necessarily expect her to like you so much that she will spend the rest of her life with you. Client, right. Therapist, does reframing it like that lower anxiety? Yes, I think so. So we can always use restructuring and trying to define terms. Like in this example, the therapist said, it is just a date. We don't have to spend our lives together. And just this can lower the anxiety levels of that interaction. So we don't need to feel anxiety, we don't need to feel fear, you know. And of course, yes, rejection is a natural thing and it happens to all of us, but it is painful, and sometimes it does feel like a generalization and a way of trying not to go about it, not to chase rejection. One way to deal with it may be to chase rejection, and so, or maybe reframing rejection, like it's not that the other person is rejecting me, because nobody can know you or me in the wholeness of our being, so you can't be possibly rejected. On the other hand, you can say, yeah, but the other person hasn't rejected the other guy, so he must be better than me. And you can restructure or reframe that by saying, yes, maybe that's a preferable choice for that person, but it doesn't mean that I'm worth less or less worthy than the other person. So with restructuring, you can actually start to feel better in the same situation, and it's a much healthier way of looking at the situation, because it's the truth. There will be other people that genuinely care for you and that find you interesting, no matter how you are. And the more you are like yourself, the better you will fare in life.